So today we're going to talk about some trade show stories, right? We've got Leanne asking some questions, and she's joining me, Tim, and Cari. So yeah, we're just going to see how this goes.
Go for it, yeah. So all three of us have personally been manning stands on behalf of Peek and Poke before. We've done it ourselves. But what is the most memorable trade show event that you guys remember doing?
Go on, Tim. You go first.
I think when we ever do trade shows, the ones that the things that stick in my mind are the things that kind of go wrong outside of the trade show. When we're on the day, it's always fine, isn't it? Like they tend to go in a bit of a blur whenever we do a show. Once we're set up and off we go, and we're kind of inviting people in, and getting them to play our games and sort of talk to them. And then that bit is always like easy. I say easy. It's it's busy and it's very tiring, but it kind of just whizzes by. The things that will stick in my mind is always the setup or the breakdown, because they're the things when we've kind of had things go a bit wrong. The two that stick in my mind.
Are we going to have the short story?
The two that are burned. The two that are burned into my mind are the time we were setting up for Digital Marketing World Forum, and a couple of things went wrong at that event. So first of all, we managed to forget a little widgety thing we have a TV, don't we? And that was a pain, but Cari went and found some of the organisers and they got us a spare stand, so it was all right.
Annika Rice, I was running around trying to find a solution.
I can sort it. And then we've got we take our arcade machines and there's a lot of lifting involved. And there was this noise. It just kept happening, this weird noise. And it was like a kind of I don't know how to describe it, like a zip. And I was thinking, that's weird. And I went back to the van and came back. And then there was the zip noise again. And I was like, what's that? I was like, Cari, can you hear that noise? And she's like, what noise? And then carrying around again, and then heard the zip noise again. And Cari went, yeah, I heard it that time. And Cari said, I think it sounds like a ripping. And then I thought, oh, that's weird. And I looked down. And it was a very hot day, so I was wearing shorts. And what had happened is clearly I had been eating too many pies, and I had basically ripped a big hole in my shorts, a massive hole in the back of my shorts, and was walking around with my boxer shorts on display to everybody. And there's all the other people setting up the stands, all the roadies, all that sort of stuff. They're all setting up the stands, and I was just at that point I was looking for some sympathy, and I didn't get any. And Cari is literally rolling on the floor, laughing her head off. There's Ahmad. He was there too, and just the two of them were just dead on the floor, just crying, laughing, and I'm having this horrible moment. And what was worse, I happened to be wearing pink dinosaur patterned underwear at the time, so.
Well, you rock dinosaur pants. I mean, what are you going to do? I don't think anybody noticed.
At least a boxer short is full coverage versus something else. It could have been.
That's just one story. The other one.
That was one event.
Is the other horror was the time we crashed the van on the way out of the. That was. It wasn't really a big crash, was it, Cari? It was
it wasn't a big crash, but it was. It made for a long journey home, didn't it?
What
from
basically
London.
happened is I was driving the van out of Excel, and there was they were doing loads of building work, weren't they? And I was trying to maneuver around a lorry and around a digger, and I misjudged it and drove through the scoopy part of the front of the digger, and I ripped the tyre off the van. And it was really annoying because we had a really good show, hadn't we? We were thinking, oh, wow, we've done a record breakdown, collected loads of leads. We're thinking everything's gone to plan. This is the best time ever.
That was the first mistake.
And then
thinking that.
We got it all wrong. And then we called up the recovery people, and they're like, yeah, well, we'll come and get you. And then it took, 12 hours to get back home. So we were just sat, and it was driving a bit, getting picked up, taken to, because we had to get from London Excel all the way back to Sheffield. And so it was 3 different vans, and it was just sat in motorway service stations at for hours, the two of us, weren't we? Just
so surreal. It was so surreal. It was like the 1st of December as well. And I remember being at one of the service stations. They'd put the Christmas tree up, and it was 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, and these teenagers come in and they're doing TikTok videos to Mariah Carey in front of the Christmas tree at 5 o'clock in the morning. And we were just delusional. I thought I was seeing things. We literally walked in the house. I walked in the house as my alarm was going off. My normal wake-up alarm at 6:30. Yeah.
I cannot listen to that song. Whenever that song comes on Christmas now, I have trauma.
Some flashbacks.
I do, because it was like a weird version of it. It was like all sped up, wasn't it? It was like, was it Mariah Carey? Was it Kelly Clarkson? Anyway,
I don't know what. It was awful.
It was really weird. They were doing this TikTok dance like over and over again, and they just kept doing it, and different places all around the service station, and we're just sat there like, what is going on? Like, is this happening?
I do often wonder how in the background of these TikTok videos there's never much of a crowd, and what you're telling me is that it's because they're all done at service stations in the twilight hours.
Yeah,
I think so.
We were there, bleary-eyed. It was horrendous.
Yeah, it was bizarre. Yeah, so I mean, that's not a good memory.
Maybe I should have rephrased the question. Which were the most memorable for positive trade show related reasons?
I don't have a positive one either. I do have positive ones, but the memorable one that was going to stick in my mind was the COVID one. So that was Manchester, when literally on the second day of the event was the day that Boris Johnson declared a global pandemic. And it was the bizarrest show, I think, that we've ever been to. The first day, everybody was quite jolly. We were all kind of in it together, and we were all kind of like, hey, yeah, we'll be okay, won't we? And we were all kind of,
touching elbows
with our elbows. Yeah. And then the second day, I was doing a talk, and everybody was just a bit shell-shocked, I think. My talk was at like 10 o'clock, so it was the first one in the morning. Yeah. And everybody was just, what is going on? And I asked a few people, like, are we okay? Does anybody want to leave? Like, what is going to happen here? And I had a few people from Canada that were sat there. They were going, yeah, we don't really know what to do. I think maybe we should go to the airport. It was so bizarre. It was a really bizarre experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember, as you said, like day one, everyone was in good spirits. I mean, it felt a little bit quieter than the usual trade show, but I think that was the first one I'd attended at this venue in Manchester. But everyone was in really good spirits. Like, everyone was really happy. We were touching elbows in kind of a tongue-in-cheek way. And then the next day, just as you inevitably get peel off in trade shows anyway as people start to head home, but it was marked in that. In all of the breakout areas, everyone was just on their phones, just sort of taking hasty phone calls and just like creeping away. And it was just this quiet exodus, so that by the end of the trade show, it felt a little bit dystopian.
Very strange. And I guess, that's that point. It was really hard to see how events would ever make a comeback. It was like, this is never going to happen again. Like, surely, getting that many people in one place when things like that are happening, because off the back of that, there were so many digital events, and virtual events, which kind of, were filling a hole, and they were working in that time. It was very difficult to see how people would ever go back to kind of real-time events. But I think since then, and the years that have kind of followed, we've definitely seen, more and more people coming back to, and I don't think there's anything really that replaces it. I don't think digital and virtual events really do replace in-person events. I think seeing people, being there, showcasing, having those conversations and creating those connections, I think there's nothing like it.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. So I suppose in terms of, making sure that you've got really good van insurance, you've packed up everything that you need to pack in advance of the trade show, check the news to make sure that there's no sort of global pandemic incoming. What are some of the other lessons that you learn, that you only learn from having experience on the trade show floor, that you carry with you for future events?
I think it's about patter and like what your rhythm is, isn't it? Like, I remember that the first time we did an event, it was Cari dragged me to this event because
kicking and
sound like
screaming.
Cari.
Like literally kicking and screaming.
She was like, I think we should do events, Tim. I was like, what?
Talk to people.
So I was like, okay, fine. And you just sort of get into it. And, I wasn't sure what to expect because I've never exhibited at an event before. And you were very keen. Yeah, it'd be fine. Don't worry about it.
Very social butterfly.
We took a game on an iPad and a pull-up banner, didn't we? That was like the first version we did. And actually, I found it was pretty easy because what we had to do is people would kind of walk past and you just go, "Hey, we've got this game. Do you want to come and play it?" And they go, and then you go. The conversation would just naturally sort of lead to, "Oh, what do you do then?" And we go, "Okay, well, we make games and we do all the, and it, but like you kind of get what you learn is that there's a rhythm to each kind of conversation, isn't there? You sort of like, you kind of get there's hooking them in, like as they're wandering past, you want to kind of just hook them in. And the thing that we always do, and we recommend that our clients do, is say, like, do you want to play a game? Hey, do you want to have a play? And then they'll some of them will go, I don't really play games. And you can go, well, it's easy. It's, you can win a prize. And they go, oh, go on then. So, and then they kind of come in, don't they? And then they have a quick go. And then as they're playing, you don't even have to start spieling at them. They always ask you. So they always say, so what do you do then? And then you can just sort of do your pitch. And then you sort of, after you have a chance to explain it a bit, they go, oh, right, okay, I've got it. And I think that's the thing that I've learned is it's actually, once you've got this rhythm, once you learn what the rhythm is, and it only takes 5-10 people to kind of figure out what it is.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the things that you can't really understand until you've done trade shows is the energy that it takes as well, because you could have the best stand in the whole hall, you could have all the bells and whistles, you could have lots of engagement and activity, but if you don't have a sales team that can kind of bring the excitement and the energy and bring people in, that definitely becomes harder. There's nothing worse than just walking past a stand and people are just looking on their phones and they're sitting down and they're on their laptops. You've got to be kind of enticing people in. Having a game really helps with that because, like Tim said, all you have to do then, rather than trying to go, can I tell you a little bit about my widget, this, that, or the other. If you can just go, hey, do you want to come and play a game, win some prizes? Well, then that's definitely an easier sell.
Yeah, and it's not just about stand staff fatigue. Like, obviously, you do get tight. There's a lot of talking. When we go to trade shows, we have our Moralabo hidden, where we'll just have a couple of sweets or some polos because you get so sort of dry mouth from just talking non-stop all day. But it's not just about your fatigue and your energy, it's the attendees as well. Like, they're sold out from the second they walk into that exhibition hall to the moment they leave, and being able to invite someone over for something that isn't, let me give you my elevator pitch, is a really nice break for them as well. Some attendees, they come in groups and they've got the moral support of their colleagues and their friends. Some people, their boss sends them in solo and they're just awkwardly floor walking, looking for something to fill the time between talks. And being able to sort of break away, come and engage with something that does sort of like tickle the dopamine receptors in the brain is a nice thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. Hi, everybody. Just dropping in here to say that if you're interested in any of the things we've been talking about today, you can download an ebook or ebooks. We'll put some links to them in the below the video. Go check them out now.
Can you think of any examples from the trade shows we've been at where you think a stand just isn't working for the client and why that might be?
I think you can tell. It's like you can see it as you're walking around an event, can't you? It's when they haven't like put in any effort. They've sort of turned up last minute. They've got a table. They've got a pull-up banner, and they've sent some poor soul on his own.
Sans Moralabo.
And he's got, maybe he's got a fishbowl with some business cards in it and some sweets and things, and you just think, that's hard work. And that works for some people, I guess. Like, if you're like a super outgoing, chatty type person who's very good at like grabbing people's attention, then you perhaps don't need any other widgets or fancy things. That's not me.
Yeah.
I need all the help I can get. And yeah, there's just no thought. Like sometimes they buy a booth. You see them, they've got a booth, and there's no graphics up at the back. I just think you're making it really hard for yourself. It's not that hard to get some graphics done, is it? And I always want to go and ask them, what happened?
Yeah.
Like, are you okay?
Yeah.
Do you want a polo?
Yes.
Yeah, because they're expensive, aren't they? Let's face it, like those kind of, that real estate, that floor space is expensive before you even get there. So you absolutely have to make the most of it. So yeah, I would agree. I think it's those stands that have not put the effort in and don't have anything to draw people in. I think that is hard work, and you're setting yourself up for a really difficult time there.
Yeah, and I appreciate with some companies it must be hard, particularly when they are in these more intense, dare I say, dry industries where they have to, it is just text, is just sort of really restrictive corporate colours. They can't be eye-catching in that way, but pair that with the example you had before of people just sat on their phones or sat down or not engaging, and then it's a lose-lose on both sides. You don't have the peacock factor of the stand for drawing attention in the first place, but then you don't have an engaged stand staff either, and it just makes you really easy to walk past.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see that, don't you? Especially like you mentioned before, like the delegate fatigue as well. It's very easy if you don't even make eye contact with somebody just to walk past. So I think, yeah, making that initial eye contact is really important.
Yeah, and with the example with the you see it all the time, that get this bottle of Moe or get this hamper of sweets, just put your business card in the bowl. For me, there's no qualification there at all. It's just someone is giving you their business card. They don't actually know anything about you. You may not have even had a conversation with them. It's just, I'm putting it in there because I want what you've got, but I might not necessarily be the person that you want to talk to at the end of the day. And it's just thinking of ways that, some companies you are restricted on what you can do to try and draw people in, but it's making sure that if it is just a fishbowl, if it is just a put your business card to enter, making sure that the stand staff are at least trying to qualify or talk as well.
Yeah, competitions I think are always a really good idea, and we always kind of try and do that, don't we, with our games as well. So even if it's just a game by itself, having a competition is an extra motivator for people to get involved and to leave their details. So with our games in particular, you would invite people to come and play it either on a shared device or on an arcade cab or an iPad or a touchscreen, something like that. They would play the game. Once they get over that submitted score, there is a point where you put your details in. So first name, last name, email. You can even have job qualification. So you can have that kind of job title that they choose from. So then you're qualifying that business company name as well. And then they go onto the leaderboard, and that's where they would be in with a chance to win a prize, whether that's at the end of the event or on the spot prizes is always really good as well. So having a competition definitely is an extra motivator for people to get involved, and we always recommend that for clients.
Absolutely. And not just with our games, any games in general, that has the added benefit of holding people's attention longer. So people are coming in and they're actively engaging with something rather than it be like a really quick interaction of writing my email down, giving my business card, and they're having fun.
Yeah, it makes you memorable, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, especially when you kind of, and let's face it, we all have to do those kind of post-show follow-ups. If you've had a game on your stand and you have, as a delegate, you've experienced that kind of process, and that is something other than just putting your business card in a fishbowl and grabbing a Haribo off the back of it. It's memorable.
Who has
and
business cards these days anyway?
Who has business cards? Yeah, we've not taken them for ages, have we?
It's all LinkedIn now.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, doing something memorable definitely helps that kind of follow-up sales process as well, because we often get, oh yeah, you were the guys with the game, I really loved that, it was really fun, and it's kind of builds on that rapport off the back of it.
Absolutely. Now we've been very, very good at talking about how other people get it wrong, but do we have any examples where we've pulled a stand together but it's just not quite worked in the way that we hoped it would, and any key learnings from that we could share with other people?
I'm sure there is. I just need to think.
Yeah, I'm struggling. We've always taken a game, and we have never not taken a game because, I mean, it makes sense because we're a games business. Like, it would be weird to not bring a game, right? So it's quite, because we've always had that thing to kind of talk around and get people to come and talk to us. And so I don't feel like our events, like, I don't think we have gone wrong in terms of what we did on the day. I think where things have not gone well has been perhaps the circumstances outside our control. Like, we went to an event once and it was the wrong sort of event, right? And we had lots of chats, but nothing came of it, right? But that's not, I guess the lesson there is you got to go to an event where your audience is, right?
Yeah,
so,
I don't think that's a bad lesson.
But that's, I mean, that sounds pretty obvious, but like, we got it wrong. Like, I think it was, we weren't really sure. I think it was, we went because we thought, oh, well, it's not going to cost that much. You know, I think maybe we got like a bargain stand, you know, for whatever it was. And then when we got there, we realized it was just the wrong sorts of businesses, wrong sort of size. You know, I think at the time we were still figuring those things out anyway. So maybe that was it.
I think that one of the things that we've progressively got better at the more that we have done is just understanding the prize structure being one. So I think you can definitely just do a free prize draw and that's it, and that's fine. You know, you ask people to play, put their details in, and then at the end of the event, when you're back in the office, you draw one person, or however many prizes you've got to give away. That works. But what I think is nice, and we've learnt in addition to that, if you can give people something on the stand to walk away with as well, I think that really helps, because not only are you kind of, you know, you've got a bigger prize, but then they've got something immediate. So we take t-shirts and they always work really well, don't they? Like, people, we wear the t-shirts, they're quite fun. They've got a really nice graphic on them and people like them. And we've gone to a particular show, B2B Marketing Expo. We've gone to it multiple times, and people come back to our stand, and they're like, oh, what t-shirts have you got this year? And then they try and win it, and then they get it there, and then they get to walk away with it. And sometimes they're even wearing it the next day, which is always really fun as well. So thinking about the prize structure and, you know, making it extra, having that extra bit of fun.
Yeah, I think the key to good prizes is so I would say that merch is a great prize to give away. So if you've got lots of merch, people will always have merch, especially t-shirts. They use them, they give them to the kids, they use them for nighties, they, you know, whatever, right? But where you can kind of do a better job of that is really think about what is something that's going to be actually useful to the person you're giving it to, you know? And when we think about t-shirts, they do have a Peek and Poke logo on them, but actually we don't really think so much of them about being brand messages or whatever. What we try to do is try and do nice illustrations that are in our sort of Peek and Poke brand style, but like are not necessarily about us. They're more about, you know, our audience is marketers, right? So we try to do stuff that's like a bit sort of evocative of like being a marketer and the jobs that you do and childhood memories, that sort of stuff, fun sort of game related stuff. And because those t-shirts are themed around those sorts of things, people love them. So I would say, you know, if you're thinking about doing prizes, this takes a lot of effort, I should say. Like,
it does.
It does. So, you know, it's not, you don't have to do it. It's like that's how you get a better reaction, I suppose. Like, people will quite happily have a branded t-shirt regardless.
It doesn't have to be t-shirts either. Like, I went to a client event once and they had chocolates and gin to give away. So they had big prizes, which were, you know, at the end as a free prize draw that they did after the event. But on the day, everybody who played and set a score, they had like little mini chocolates or mini bottles of gin. And that worked brilliantly, because then, you know, you're getting something immediately to take away with you as well.
Yeah, and the events that we go to, the stand giveaways that I've seen people go most feral over are things like soft toys. People want to take the soft toys home to their kids. Tote bags. People always use tote bags. They take those home with them. Reusable water bottles. It's not a trade show client of ours. They used it as part of a digital campaign, but they gave away key rings to everyone who was in the top 100 leaderboard. Those were so popular that they were getting harassed for them. So, you know, if you've got stacks of stuff in the marketing cupboard left over, like branded key rings, little token novelty things like that you can bring with you, to get rid of, be just as that extra incentive that anyone who submits their score to the leaderboard has given you their data, they get that nice little token to walk away with, in addition to the chance to win something much bigger.
Yeah, it's interesting that as well, isn't it? Because I'm having lots more conversation with people now who are very aware of the stuff that they have on their stand. And as a business, they have, a responsibility to be more sustainable. So having one prize and maybe, a little giveaway or a voucher or something like that, that also works. So yeah, it's just something that people are becoming more mindful of, and having a game. I think not only, that it's a digital thing, you don't have something physical on your stand that's kind of more throwaway, but yeah, you can manage that a little bit more if that is something that you're aware of and have been tasked with as well.
Yeah, I do think, like you say, just giving things to someone it's nice. It's a nice engagement. With games, obviously we do games. Has there been any time that you can think of from trade shows that we've gone to where the energy of the stand has just been completely changed once people realise that there are games to interact with?
Yeah, I think so. I think the arcade cabs do that.
Yeah, I think the arcade cabs have always been a big thing for us. We had these, we first took one to an event years ago. We bought one from a company that makes them, and and it got such a good reaction, didn't it? And it was like people would walk past the stand and you just watch their heads go,
yeah.
What's this about then? And you kind of get them to kind of join in and have a play. And having run that machine at the events, we sort of realized there were some issues with the way people interacted with it. We are still doing a lead generation exercise at the end of the day, I guess. We want to collect people's scores, get them on a leaderboard, so that we can kind of, follow up with them afterwards. And the arcade machine that we did have was quite clunky for getting that data. And you had to use the joystick to add the name and email, and it took a long time. So we went and had a new version of an arcade machine manufactured, which has a touchscreen on it. So that suddenly they're a complete solution. You can play the game, you have a go, add in your score, and that process is a lot more rapid. That's something you really want to think about when you're an event. You want it quick enough so that someone can play it, enter their name on a leaderboard, and then move on. Because people, when they're at events, most people don't like to hover around too much. They kind of get a bit self-conscious, and there's always someone watching them, and maybe there's two of them and they're kind of egging each other on. But like, what happens then is if it's quick and they have a go, they go, maybe I'll have another go.
Yeah.
And then they might have 2 or 3 goes, and then they kind of sort of hooked in a bit, right? And then they'll come back later because they want to see how's my score doing. Am I still on the top? Or, am I still in the top 10 or whatever? And the arcade machines are really great at that whole experience. It just creates a more visceral experience. Like a kind of it's more tactile. It's not just a screen. A touch screen is great. It's very easy to do a touchscreen game. An arcade machine is a bit more logistics involved, but actually the experience is a bit more like memorable, I guess. That's
reminded me of one of my favorite actual experiences, I guess, of being in a trade show. So an event last year, I think it was, we had a couple of arcade cabs, and we had 2 people who were from completely separate companies. One was an exhibitor in the hall as well, another one was a delegate, and they kept on coming back to try and beat their scores, and they even took it online. So it was on LinkedIn. They were saying, haha, I beat your score, and they were taking photos of each other and tagging each other in it, which I loved that, because that's exactly what it's all about, isn't it? It's about creating a buzz that goes even beyond being there. It was kind of it was great. It was really good to see that competition kind of being formed.
When you definitely see it between complete strangers at events that wouldn't have crossed paths otherwise. Another really nice one is when you get a gaggle of people from the same company, and sometimes you can quite easily tell there is one senior person there and then a couple of more junior people there, and they're going around the trade show trying to gather intel. And they're really cagey, particularly the senior person is really cagey when they first start talking to you before they can suss what you're about. But the second the game comes into it and they start cajoling each other, and then they get into this competition, and you see those walls just break down a bit. It's nice seeing that energy shift of being a bit wary, just want to figure out what's going on, and then getting into the game.
Yeah, the boss
Challenging
man
each
or
other.
lady has let their hair down a bit. You know, the younger executives are kind of having fun competing against each other. You know, maybe they're beating the boss or something. But
Yeah. And so I remember it was one me and Cari did at a football stadium, and the stand across from us had one of those big batak walls, and they were really good for the big, confident, typically young male demographic of attendee who were really wailing on this batak wall, but did notice that not everyone was as willing to put themselves out there like that. And I remember having a chat with one of the guys who worked the stand about how he kept seeing people coming over and playing our game that weren't going to them, whereas typically if someone was up for a batak wall, they were also up for playing a game on a console, a screen, an arcade cab. We had a screen at the time. The same sort of principle of offering a challenge, getting people to have a little bit of fun, but it's maybe not as full on as something where they have to throw their body around. They can be a bit more private in how they engage.
Yeah, it suits sort of all personality types, doesn't it? That's probably the best way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it captures data as well.
It does, yeah.
Those kind of physical things are great, you know, and they have a bit of presence about them, but you still have to kind of then manage that kind of lead collection in some way, whereas a digital game will do that for you.
Yeah. And that raises an interesting point. Have you ever seen at a trade show or from client stories, have you ever seen a game fail or not achieve what the team or whoever it was hoped they would?
I think there's a couple of factors that can maybe not work as well as you would want it to. One being the team around it, inviting people. So if the game is hidden in the back on a small screen and nobody is being directed to it, that is really hard. That's really hard for that game to do its job then. So it does really need people to kind of shout about it and tell people about it, make it front and center, you know. I think there's the other issue I think sometimes is when you might just do a top spot prize. So some people think that, and it's a very obvious thing to kind of assume that you would just award the top scorer on the leaderboard at the end of the event or on day one or day two or whatever. But what that can do, and we've seen mixed results from just doing that, is that, you know, some people might come to it and go, "Ooh, that's a really high score. There's no way I'm going to beat that." And then they'll just walk away from it. And then at that point, one, you're not being as inclusive to everybody. You're not collecting as many leads as you could. And that's not the experience that we want, is it, at the end of the day? So that's why we always suggest doing a free prize draw, either as itself or alongside a kind of like a leaderboard positioning prize as well.
Yeah, and being sure to reiterate that as well. We've had it at a trade show where someone's come, they've gotten a score on one of our games and they've gone, "Oh, that's not very good, is it?" Because they can see they're really low on the leaderboard. They're like, "Oh, that's not good. I'm not going to win." And you're like, "Well, you might." Yeah. Just reiterating to them that, you know, as long as they're in it, as long as they've submitted and ultimately you've got that data, there is still a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing about a trade show is it's like there's lots of things that you can do, and ideally you want to do all of those things, right? You want to kind of do some pre-show promotion, you want to have a range of different prizes that people can win, you want to have staff on the stand who are going to be able to, you know, bring the energy like we talked about earlier. You want to have a fun game that sort of doesn't take too long but can draw people in. You want it on a screen that's big enough to attract people so that it's visually there, and you want to do your follow-up. The one thing we talked about earlier, that what was the thing we got wrong, we've got our follow-up wrong in the past, where you just, you know, we kind of have done events and then after the event it just sort of gets forgotten about. We've definitely been guilty of that in the past. You know, these days what we would do is you would, you know, send that into an automation and you know, contact the people who are the most appropriate. But like all of those things, you don't have to do all of them, right? It doesn't matter. But like where it goes wrong is if you don't do any of them.
Yeah.
Like that's the real problem. You know, if you just don't, you just sort of just do one of them, and you know that's the more effort you put into it and all those different parts. Like with any marketing, it's like it's the sum of the parts, isn't it? Right. It's not just the one thing. Like doing one thing isn't going to do anything. You've got to think about all of the different parts of the process and make sure they're all right. And you're never going to do all of them or get all of them right at once, but if you can do most of them or a lot of them, then you're going to be a lot more successful.
And we've got lots of ebooks and guides that kind of help with that as well, right?
Exactly.
So all of those things that you should consider, we've been through it. We've kind of, we've learned the hard way, and we've kind of collated all of that information into lots of different guides that you can find on the website as well.
Yeah, totally.
Earlier in the conversation, we were talking about how games can be really good for icebreakers and bringing people in. How does that conversation start, and then how does that turn into a sales conversation?
From our experience, I think we always ask, do you want to play a game to win a prize? That's always seems to be a good hook. And then when they're playing, then you can start to bring the conversation around to, and I always like to ask the question, like, what brings them to the event? What are they looking for? It's just so then you can get an idea of what their challenges are, what they're looking for, and how we might be able to help with that. So I think that's always quite an easy way in. You're starting with the game, but then while they're there, while they're spending time with you, that's when you can start asking those kind of real kind of questions to see if what you're offering as a solution will help them.
And I suppose with having that conversation, that can be the key difference between what is essentially a busy stand and a productive one. Like, you can have particularly some of the events we've gone to where we've got a really outwardly busy stand, people queued up to play, making loads of noise, but it's a bunch of students that have come into the event because it's a free event.
Yeah.
So it's busy, but it's not necessarily productive for us. So it's about, what is the difference between a busy stand and a productive one, and how do you try and steer it into being productive and making the most of your time there?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because, yeah, like you said, we've been to events before where it's been a free event and you're getting people just walking off the street. I remember once we had one woman that came in and she was playing the kind of match 3 Candy Crush style game that we have, and just hogging that machine for about, I don't know, she played the whole
like
thing.
An hour.
And yeah, it's like, do you have any questions for us? She was like, no, I just really love the game. It's great. So yeah, there is definitely a difference between being, having leads that are valuable and leads that aren't.
Yeah.
And I think what we've learned over the years is having that extra field to qualify people on the score submission is really helpful, because you can we have a drop down on ours, don't we, that has, I'm a marketing at an agency, I'm a marketer within a brand, I'm a student. So then you can start to qualify those leads when you get back to the office. It's also having those conversations with people about what I said earlier about asking them questions about what they're there for. You can start to understand a little bit about if there's some synergy there and if you can work with them. Making notes, I think, is always really good as well, so that you can remember those conversations. I think quite a lot of the stands now as well, they have those QR scan codes, and you can just write a quick note or just make a note quickly after you've had that conversation with them, just so that you can remember what you talked about, and then you can make that follow-up really personal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just going back to your note about the qualifying question on the submit score panel, we often find with B2B businesses, they really want to, add loads of questions, don't they? B2B businesses, they want to super qualify any lead that they get in, so they have 10 different questions, and that's fine. Like on a website, perhaps, where you just want super qualified, high intent people. At a trade show, that's not good, because 10 questions on a game, or to be honest, any game, you want to remove that friction. And we really sort of like the nerd about whether or not we should add that extra drop down, because ideally you want name, email, and that's it. Like, those are and probably an opt-in to the terms of T&Cs and that sort of thing. The more form fields you add, the more chance you've got someone going, yeah, can't be asked. And we did in the end add one drop down, which was, we're looking for marketers. Like, so one of the options is I'm a marketer, right? Or it's like I'm a student, because some of the events we go to get loads of students coming and playing the games. That's fine, but we want to just filter those out, right?
Yeah.
what I've since realized is that maybe we should add a feature to this, like a paid feature or something. But like, actually, you don't, like, if you're in B2B and the good people, the people who are, qualified, they'll be on LinkedIn, things like that. So there are systems, there are ways to qualify them via their email addresses automatically, right? We do this for our, in our CRM now, we've got a system which goes, and when people kind of submit data to our lead forms and things, it goes through a system which will enrich the person, and it will just sort of check and see if can it find some information about them, and if it can, are they the right sort of company size, are they the right sort of industry, that sort of thing. And then it puts them in one bucket, and if they're not, it puts them in another bucket. Like, that's, that was quite a technical setup, I suppose, but I think that's better than making your audience do it, because they, you're just giving them more friction.
Yeah, and that's really valuable, isn't it?
On those fields as well, making sure that you aren't putting anything too off-putting, which one thing that we do see a lot is clients asking for phone number, mobile number in that data capture field, and trying to advise them not to have that, because number one, there's no way for us to qualify whether that's a correct number or not. So people just put any old stuff in. But equally, if someone's giving you their mobile number because they are submitting a form on your website because they want to be called, that's one thing, versus this being their first point of contact with you. You're getting their email address. So, and most people don't mind receiving an email, but they don't necessarily want to be harassed on the phone before them. And having that there can be off-putting, I think, sometimes.
It's just adding friction that you don't really want.
Yeah. And I suppose with those conversations starting as well, we at Peek and Poke are operating on easy mode, because someone comes and plays a game and they say, so what do you do then? And we can be, ta-da! Whereas, if you're
you say that, but like, they still don't, they're not, I think people wander around trade shows and they're not really thinking about the stands too much, because they always ask us what we do, and it's written in massive letters, games for marketing. And there's games on screens, and people say, so what do you do?
Yeah. I think it is easier for us to pivot from games to games versus someone who has a game on their stand, and when someone's like, oh, so what do you do then? And we're like, underwriting, or we're a sales automation tool. And just thinking about ways that they can make that connection between the game on their stand and what it is they do, by picking a game that's themed, or using the menu copy just to sort of present a narrative of what's going on in the game ties into what they're offering, just to try and make that conversation flow a bit easier. I don't know if you, Cari, can think of any clients of ours that have done particularly well there.
Yeah, I think that's always something that we think about in those initial conversations, isn't it? With what's the nice thing about our kind of library of games, I guess, is that we have different levels of customization. So you can take something that is ready to go out of the box, and we have a lot of things like cyber themed games that you might not have to do a great deal to them. But if you want to really kind of have it as an extension of your theme or your brand or a product that you're launching or something, we can, quite easily look at the games that might suit that narrative a little better, how we can tweak it and customize it to make it work. So we quite often have people, certainly in our maze game, you can have your audience being the hero character, and the enemies that they're facing would be the challenges that they're facing in their business world. And then the power pill that turns the table on those enemies and helps you overcome them is the solution that you offer. So you can really kind of bring that narrative into effect there. And we have another game which is a bit like a flyer, where you can pick up mega boosts that kind of propel you forward and, make your journey faster and easier. That's quite regularly something that our clients change to be more kind of product or brand focused. So yeah, there's definitely something that we ask the question, at the beginning of the process, like, what are you trying to achieve? What's the objective? What's the narrative that we're trying to kind of push? And then we can work out what best game and what customizations can help to bring that to life.
So we've spoken a lot about things that have worked well for us, things that have worked well for other clients, and things in general that go quite well with trade shows. But would you say that there is one thing that consistently works at every event across the board? that we could recommend?
Well, that we could recommend prizes as being one. I think we've spoken at length about, the importance of having a prize structure and thinking about how you implement that. And that's definitely something that we can help advise on as well. But in terms of going to events and setup and thinking about that whole project, I think giving yourself enough time, because nobody wants to be that person on that stand with nothing behind you and a laptop and you're having to do all the hard work. So giving yourself time to plan is really important. And what we've learned along the way, to try and not forget things like TV stand polls is a checklist, and it might sound really simple and straightforward, but we, without a doubt, at every event that we go to now, we have a checklist where we pack things up in the office and we kind of tick them all off, and then we tick them off when they are in the van as well.
We do. We learned that lesson the hard way, didn't we?
We did learn that lesson the hard way, but it's really important. And yeah, like you said, Leanne, we've got one of those that we have made available so that, you can use that as a starting point for your own one as well.
Okay, so consistently works at every event. Preparation, making sure you've got good preparation, competition structure, making sure that there is that prize incentive to try and get people over the line when it does come to submitting their data. Is there anything that on paper you would think would be a good idea but actually rarely works?
I think we've already covered that. The main one I would have is the top spot prize, which we talked about earlier, which is we say this in a lot of our games, not just trade shows, but online as well. And it's not even just the top spot prize. It's when you just do a top spot prize, because if you're at an event, the intention isn't just to appeal to one subset of people. You want to get as many people involved and coming to engage with you and talk to you as possible. So you want to make sure that everything about that is low friction, it's easy to get involved, and is inclusive. And if you can do all those things, then you're maximizing the people that come and have a chat with you, you're maximizing the leads you're going to get. Sometimes when you're at an event, you might want to have like a top spot prize and some other prizes. That works very nicely. Sometimes if you're doing an online game, you might want to have a top spot prize and some other prizes. But when we talk about events, I would say be wary of them, definitely.
Yeah. I think for me, one thing that sounds like a good idea, and it sounds like a really good idea to the marketer that is purchasing the game to use at the trade show, is I want as much data as possible. I want it qualified, so I'm going to make people give it to me before they play the game. So data capture up front with lots of different fields, because on paper, that way I am getting everyone and I am making sure they are super qualified before my sales team even get their hands on the details. When in reality, what you see is it's friction, it's off-putting if you're asking too much. Equally, if you're holding someone ransom and saying you have to give me your details before you engage, it's very, very easy for them to say, I won't engage, and just move on. And then they miss out on that real fun human connection.
Yeah. I mean, this is something that we at Peek and Poke are very much against, isn't it? Like, there's two reasons why it's bad. Well, three. I could figure loads.
Let's keep it to your top three.
I'll keep it short.
And Tim now.
Right. The most important, it's a dark pattern. It sets the wrong tone. It's saying, all I care about from you is your contact details. It just sets the tone that this is a transaction, which you don't want. That's not what you want. What you want to do is you want to give first. And then once you have given something fun, something to engage with that enjoy, then at that point, then you can ask. As a result of that, you get better quality data. If you're asking up front, you get lots of fake details. Mickey Mouse at Disney.com. You don't want that.
And that's it. You want as many people to play it. This is what I don't understand. You want as many people to play it as possible. So don't give them hurdles and loops to jump through.
Just to entry.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So we've spoken about lots of different things today. Some of them tragic, being stuck in service stations for 12 plus hours. Some of them incredibly helpful on a very sort of practical level. Checklists, making sure you've got polos and suites, having an engaged stand staff, and some of them more involved and specifically around games at trade shows. If there's anything in there at all that's piqued your fancy or sort of raised more questions for you, you can book in a discovery call with myself or Cari via a link on the website. We also have all those lovely guides that Cari spoke about before.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers. See you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.